Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
I'm going to tell you something. If you two ever bother me again the rest of my life, I ain't giving them attention. I can't. There's good friends of mine out there fucking say, well, he's divorced, you have to do his stuff. That's why I said to you before, you don't understand what the boss is your boss.
Radio. We are going to get into a new section. Really, I'm calling it Mob Glossary. And really what this is going to be is probably an ongoing segment every week of some street terms that I think need to be explained a little better. And recently I got an email from a listener regarding, he wanted some advice or somebody needing advice about taking temperatures. And it got me thinking, maybe perhaps, this is a chance for me to explore that just a little bit more, because I think sometimes people can get confused or don't know how to take temperatures, right? And it works not only in the streets, but it works in everyday life. And it might just be some useful advice. So number one, in my life, I've had to take people's temperatures, be it work, be it in relationships, be it friendships, whatever the case may be. And when we say the phrase taking somebody's temperature, it's long form for knowing where we stand with somebody and what the temperature is with people. In the streets, it's a necessity. It really is a necessity. You have to be aware of your surroundings, the pace, the politics, and what the word on the street is. And the truth is, it's easier than you think, depending on who you're dealing with. In the streets, sometimes you got to do it through other people. Tickling the wire usually is just enough to evoke a response from somebody. Even at work, for those of you that are totally legitimate people, I'm not saying I'm not, but it's an easy thing to do. The number one rule in taking a temperature is you have to remember people will give themselves up easily. If it's a boss at work, or maybe somebody who just gets promoted, they have a false sense of phantom power. And the reality is they do have a little power, but what they do is often when people get a promotion, people will distance themselves because they're in a different bracket now. So those tight bonds you had before seemingly have disappeared. But like I said, it's phantom power because within a month, they're going to revert back to being normal. Anytime anybody gets a little shine, they're going to act a little different. And the only extension of power that they truly have over you is talking to someone above them to get you out the fucking door. And you have to realize that, and you have to think ahead of them. You understand? However, if you cultivate friendships at the top above that person, then there's nothing that motherfucker can do to you. And that's just the truth. So why is it important to take a temperature on the streets? Well, I'm going to draw back the curtain just a little bit from the street perspective. And before anybody thinks, oh, here he goes talking about current shit, I'm not. I refuse to. But I'm going to go a bit further into a story where temperatures were rising and very quickly. And I was caught in the middle between an attorney and an acting mob boss who was none too pleased with him. And so that's where we're going to start. Number one, here is a fact. When you're considered an associate, and those are not my words, but the feds and others on the street, when they label you that, you are responsible for anyone that you bring around. If you bring your dopey-ass cousin along and he does some dumb-ass shit, says too much, or does something sideways, you're the one that's going to be held responsible for their actions. So you have to make sure, above all else, whoever the fuck you bring around has to be what we call in the streets good. Good meaning not a rat. Keep their mouth shut. Not a cop. Not related to a cop. Has a certain mindset. So this is more than, I should say. But for clarification, I'm going to. During the shooting of the Flanagans, and for those of you that are confused about what I just said, I don't want to go all into the whole fucking thing, but let's say that we had a TV pilot going that I was in control of. Some bad shit went down in the end between myself and the two co-producers of the show. And I'm not going to go into the politics of all of that because it's over with. However, there was a meeting set at my lawyer's offices between myself, my attorney, and one of the producers. At this meeting, it got heated and it got angry very fucking quick. And at one point, one of the producers looks at me and says, "Is George Borghese and Sonny Mazzone silent partners on your end?" And I laughed immediately and asked him if he was on drugs. He then said, "I'm going to have them investigated." And it took everything that I had not to crawl across the desk and kill him right then and there. Because you don't do that. After that meeting, I go outside And first thing I was going to do is just club the fuck out of him outside. As soon as he walked out that lawyer's office, I was going to kill him. It was over with because I was hot, but I didn't. Because to me, the first thing that I had to do was call my friends and let them know what this motherfucker was saying. This is a guy that I brought around. This is a guy that I vouched for. And when I called the two people I mentioned, they were irate, beyond irate. Fast forward a couple of months. Things calm down and I get a call to come to the Jersey Shore for dinner and make sure I bring my friend. Because at that point, we had kind of patched up a little bit. Bygones were bygones, but people were pissed. And the reason why they wanted him there was because they wanted to talk to him face to face. And whether anybody knew it or not, this was a fucking sit down. And so a week prior, I kept texting my guy, taking his temperature. And I know from experience with this guy, dealing with him, if he calls me before 10 o'clock in the morning, he would be irate and screaming about something. Maybe not necessarily something I did, but he was just in a fucking foul mood. But any call after coming in after 12 o'clock p.m., he was calm. And he was also not the guy to piss off. And the long story short is, I just kept texting him all week, even while on the way down to meet him at the Jersey Shore. I just kept texting little things, how's life, en route, stuff like that. And I didn't get anything substantial back, which told me he was in a pretty good mood. Because if he was scathing mad, I'd have known it through that text. And if he was scathing mad, this meeting could go very, very bad for this guy. As well as taking his temperature, it was a way of showing my loyalty to him above all else. My friend was out of line, and I had to accept the responsibility for his actions, because it made me look bad. And the story, believe it or not, is in the book, but obviously I took certain parts out. So we get to dinner, and there's zero talk about whatever the issue is. And I got to admit, it had me on edge, because the one thing that my friend did, he kept getting up and going to the bathroom on his phone. Not the gangster, the friend that made the stupid shit. And that made eyebrows at the table rise, because everybody's like, why does this guy keep going in the bathroom on the phone? See, now they're getting suspicious. And that's just certain things you don't do. It's rude. Listen, you're a lawyer, you got a call, all right, but he wasn't getting calls. But he must have gotten some feeling that there was an issue, because the entire way there, he kept asking me if he was in trouble. And I kept saying, nah, it's not like that. I knew it was otherwise, but it's not my place to tell him that. And finally, after like the 10th time to the fucking bathroom, the guy that I was there to meet with and sit down with leans forward at the table and says, listen, pal, I need to address stuff. And I know that you came to me in confidence, looking out for our thing, looking out for all of us. And just say the word, and I won't utter a word to this fuck. And I asked him personally to let it go. And he did. And that's how a sit-down works. Had he decided to slap the guy, he would have done it. If he wanted to cut him up, he could have cut him up. But because of my friendship with this guy, the gangster, he said, you came to me in confidence, you did the right thing. If you want me to let this go, I'll let it go. And he didn't have to let it go. And this is not a guy that lets shit go. Let me tell you that right now off the bat. So after dinner, we went to Memories at Margate. And we went back down to South Philadelphia after that to meet with somebody else. And the entire way, my friend is, he keeps saying, how much trouble was I in? How much trouble was I in? Did I just get away from getting slapped? And I ignored it. And finally, almost to the South Philly line, he says, listen, you never clam up. You're not saying nothing. That's how I know this was serious. And I just looked at him and said, listen, leave it be. Leave it be. He doesn't know how lucky he was. He does not know how lucky he was. If it had not been for me, the guy would have had a problem. And it wouldn't have mattered who he knew, because the fact he said he was going to have two guys fucking investigated would have ended any friendships he had with anybody gangsters up here. All right? So accepting responsibility for somebody else or their actions, that's a hard thing to fucking do. It's like throwing yourself on the fucking sword. And it seems like their actions directly affect you in the same way. So you always have to make sure that your loyalties are in check. They're in order. Those guys down there, they know how loyal I am, and they trust me. The internet can say whatever the fuck they want. Joey Merlino can lie and say whatever the fuck he wants. I was privy to shit. Nobody was. And so there are those who are at those places with me who know, because they were sitting there when this shit went on. I was the guy they trusted more than anybody. And I proved it with a guy who owns a fucking restaurant down there. I was willing to take a pinch to keep my mouth shut for him and that thing. That's what I did. I earned it. Tell me anybody else that did that. Not a single fucking soul. They all shit their fucking pants when a gangster calls them or says anything nasty to them. Another time, a guy calls me drunk. He starts asking me questions about mentioning this guy, using monikers, and then he blatantly just starts talking to me about the guys we know. I listen and he starts asking me how to behave, how to act around this one or that one. He just did not have a clue how the streets totally operated, or at least so I thought. And this is where it gets sort of double-ended, okay? What this basically was the guy setting me up on the phone to see if I was going to talk about certain people. Because I told you, they check your temperature as much as you check theirs, and they're always looking for you to be talking about somebody. So you have to be on guard. And even if it was just a random phone call of a guy drunk who's a fringe asshole wannabe jerk off, you still have to take that seriously. Like, okay, are they on the other line listening to this? You always have to be guarded. But I read right through it. I knew what it was. Because this guy called me saying, this, what do I wear? This, come on. Mentioning this one, mentioning that one. Like, nobody does that. You can't be that stupid. You've been around. You lived in South Philly your whole fucking life. And you're going to start doing this with me? It was a setup. And I'm not stupid. And I read right through it. And so after the call ended, which lasted about an hour, some rambling weird shit, I called my guy. I called the head of whatever, okay? And I explained, I just got a call from this guy. He was saying this, he was saying this, he was saying this. And the guy said, okay, pal, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Fast forward a couple of weeks. I run into the guy who called me from South Philadelphia, and he asked to speak to me in the back. So the guy that called me, I bump into him at a place. He says, can we talk outside? And I knew he was about to beef with me over telling somebody about the call. But I have to protect my friends, and I got to protect my interests. And he made some half-assed weird threat, which I laughed off. Bottom line from him was, don't tell nobody what we talk about. And all of this was a guy, he was put up to calling me saying stupid shit to see if I was going to reciprocate and go, oh yeah, that guy's a piece of shit, I don't fucking like him. Or if I was going to go, or if I was going to participate. And he was pushed to make that call to see if then I would do the right thing, which is pick up the phone and say, yo, this guy just called me saying some crazy shit. You might want to have a word with him. So it's all mind games and tricks with these guys on the streets. You have to be 2 steps ahead of people. This is why people like James Proctor, Jeff Nadeau couldn't mix with anybody in the streets. You got to be a certain mentality to go through this. You have to understand what you're getting involved in. Me, 2 steps ahead of them. And if I wasn't, I'd be dead. And that's the fucking truth. That's the fucking truth. Because I already knew if shit ever went totally bad, I knew the guy who was going to do it. I knew the guy who would do it. I'm not stupid. So the whole thing about all of this is when these guys will all tell you, oh, I bounced with this one. They didn't. Because listen to what they say. Listen to what they say. People always give themselves up. They give themselves, I'm not saying a guy tells a story one way and then adds a couple of things to it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like when they say the polar opposite. So taking a temperature with somebody who, let's say, more apt to cut your fucking head off, that is a more delicate situation. But people with rage like that are going to let you know in so many ways how they feel. They don't hold back because they don't have any control. They're like gasoline-fueled rockets with a short fuse. And with those types of people, you got to lull them to sleep the best you can. Or rock them to sleep, as we say. And so if I wasn't around for a week, if I wasn't down in Philadelphia a week, I would make sure I texted 3 or 4 guys. How you doing? How's things? What's this? What's that? You need anything? Blah, 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 blah. And I was seemingly seeing what terms that I was on, especially down there. Because you could be a hero on Monday and dead by Thursday. And so you have to be diligent in the things that you do. You have to always back the right fucking horse. You have to sit with the top. I was never tight with fringe wannabe jerk-off assholes. I was always with the captains in the hierarchy. Never a fringe fuck. Never a fringe fuck. Ask anybody. Because fringe guys, especially down in South Philadelphia, look to start trouble. Because that's all they got. They can't rub 2 fucking dimes together, so they got to make up gossip and rumor. So I was friends with the top. Not the fucking street urchins. All right? It's the same way here in New York. I don't hang with fringe assholes. When I hang, I'm with the top. And when I had a beef with and everybody knows kind of the story, I had a beef with a guy down in South Philadelphia who was an alleged captain. And I had to take a ton of temperatures after this happened. Because guys are going to side with a captain over me every day of the week 100 times out of 100 times. And I know that. And so I had to take a temperature to make sure that that beef was completely over with. Sometimes beef can be overblown. And so what ended up happening was I drove down to South Philadelphia to see the alleged underboss for his birthday. We had a few walk talks around the block about the situation. He explained, listen, you're with me, you're with us, that beef is over with, stop thinking about it. Now, those words meant nothing to me. I don't care how much I loved the guy that I was talking to. I'm not stupid, because that's how you get trapped. And yeah, some people say, oh, now he thinks he's in the mafia and he has to play. No, you got to play the game. When you're around people like this, you have to play the game, okay? You always have to assume somebody's out to fucking kill you or hurt you. Because the minute that you forget where the fuck you are, who the fuck you be dealing with, is the minute you get your eyes taken out. So it didn't matter how minusculely involved I was involved with anybody. I looked at it as, I'm a full-fledged member in this fucking thing. That's my mentality. That's how I think. Not because it's bravado, not because it's ego, not because I want it to be. Because that's the only way I knew how to protect myself. You understand? So I drove down there. He tells me whatever. And so while we're walk talking, we're under surveillance. And this is before the indictment came down. We're all under surveillance. And I'm under surveillance because I'm down there and they see me coming in and out of these places, okay? So it's not like I'm up to some crazy shit or I'm trying to make anybody think I was anything, because I'm not. But while we're walk talking, I pick his brain a little bit, because guys on the streets always give up information. You have to listen very close. Never ever volunteer a motherfucking thing to anybody. Listen before you speak. And by the end of the walk, I knew I was safe and that the issue was dead. If it wasn't, he would not have wasted time telling me a fucking thing. He would have acted, or he would have allowed that guy to act. And this guy was the only reason why this captain did not act. The captain would have been out of line for acting, but it is what it is. He would have been wrong for it, but I was prepared to what my reaction was going to be if that guy put a hand on me. And it would have gotten bad, because I'd have had 16 motherfuckers with burners up in that fucking block the next week. I'm not going to let nobody do that. But I made it clear. I did not give a fuck what anybody's title was in the streets. And that's what got me in trouble. Because I had an attitude of, oh, you're who? You're Mickey Mouse? Fuck you. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you're going to do something, fucking do something. That's the way I've always been. And it took massive balls to do that. Because nobody does that down there. But yet I did, and I did it repeatedly. All right? Because if they think you're soft, you're going to be led to the slaughter. And so if you're going to take a temperature, there are 3 things that you got to do. Number 1, you've got to maintain contact. If you're friends, you got to keep that dialogue going. You cannot listen to anybody else. Simply listen to what the person is who you need to speak to. Listen what they have to say to you. You have to ask yourself, is someone acting differently? What can it be? When did it start? You've got to go back and look at, when did he start acting sly with me? And then that's going to give you sort of the roadmap of which direction to head with whatever the fucking issue may be. You need to draw lines where you need to draw them. Guys just don't all of a sudden start acting coy with you or change overnight. Some people who get promotions in anything can act a certain way at first, but eventually it changes and they go back to normal. It's phantom power. Remember that. Number 3, play the game. Play the fucking game. Don't ever let anybody know that you're rattled, even if you are. Never show emotion. Never overdo it. Never oversell. Never undersell. That's how you stay alive. Now, in the case of everyday life, try it. See if I'm wrong. Next time you're with, say, 2 or 3 friends, just go silent. Don't say a fucking word about nothing. Just listen to the conversation. Maybe one of them is bitching about his ex-girlfriend. And if you listen long enough, they're going to give up information that you didn't ask for. Remember the old saying, never give up anything to anybody. That's how this works. You can say call a third party. But when you call a third person, you're only going to get, at best, the middle ground answer. And that person is only going to provide or give you what he feels like, how he feels. You call a third party. well, maybe they like your friend you're warring with, and maybe they're like, well, he has a point. He has a point. You got a point. Blah, blah. That I could do without somebody like that. You're either with me or you're against me. That's the way I see things. And it's easier to sit and listen than to pursue. Besides, the more people you call and talk to, the more it's going to recycle back to the fucking people you don't want to know about that shit to begin with. And that's the whole point. Knowing where you stand is very important. If it's a regular job, all we want to do is be valued, right? We all want to know that we mean something to a company. The problem is, in this country, especially 90% of all jobs, employees are treated like shit, and they're treated as if they're replaceable from day one. And you can learn a lot by watching those above you and how they deal with things. They're predictable, so you cannot be. When you go to a job you hate, only to feel like anybody coming in after you or below you is going to replace you, find another fucking job. Leave that fucking place. That's how the streets operates. And so for those that need to take a temperature, do what I suggested. And believe me, your world is going to change. You sit around and you listen long enough, all the answers are going to be provided to you. In the case of the streets, you just have to have a bearing on who you're dealing with, knowing what and how they are going to react to things. If a guy's a fucking serial killer and loses his shit at the drop of a hat, and you tell him some shit that normally would send him irate and he doesn't say anything, he's like, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. Either he's doubting you or he's going to act. That's the truth. That's the truth. You think that I don't know what these YouTube jerk-offs are going to do after I say 2 or 3 things? You think that I don't set out intentionally to initiate rage within them, that I don't know how to needle them to get what I want? I don't have to do or say much. Sometimes just showing my fucking face will do it because I know how they're going to react. I'm playing them like a fiddle and they march to my drums. They march to my drums. No, I don't need anybody to talk shit about me, but guess what? Sometimes I know just what to say to get a motherfucker going where he has 8 sleepless nights and I'm over here laughing, watching TV, eating fucking popcorn. Remember, you never have to volunteer shit. Don't ever volunteer shit. Never show anger unless you absolutely need to. I had a situation yesterday with a guy I got an issue with. He was outside running his fucking mouth. And I wanted to go out and fucking gut him like a fish. Because that's how I go from zero to violent very quickly. I don't have that bevel that lets me walk away. And after about a week of this nonsense, I said, you know what? I hear him outside my window. I'm going to go outside and fuck him up. I said, but first I'm going to go get a coffee. Because if I'm going to jail, at least I'm going to have some caffeine in me. And then I remembered this segment I wrote. I said, you know what? I'm going to handle this differently. So I walked up to the guy. And I said, listen, now for nothing. He starts raising his voice. I said, don't raise your fucking voice to me. I said, hey, come over here as a fucking gentleman. You act the same. I don't know what your fucking problem is, but as a fucking man, you got a beef with me, don't stand outside my building running your motherfucking mouth or running it to people you know are going to deliver the message. Come to me like a man. Say, can we take a walk? And if you feel a kind of way, we can have it out right there. We can have it out 6 blocks from here. I can whoop that motherfucking ass, and that'll be done with it. Or you can shut the fuck up. The choice is yours. Well. No, there's going to be no. It's either going to be a fucking man, say that shit to my face, or shut the fuck up. Because we're not going to have this conversation again. And when he said to me, or what? I pointed at the corner. I said, see him? See him? Yeah. Those are the two that are going to cut you the fuck up. Not me. I don't got to do it. Because they don't like you. And the only reason why they didn't fuck you up on the block earlier is because I asked them not to when you was running lip service about other people on this block. Yeah, guy just standing there and, his sweatsuit attire, talking mad shit about everybody on the block. And nobody says nothing because I think people think of motherfuckers Looney Tunes. He's not. I know the guy well. But it gets to the point where you have to pick and choose what battles are worth fighting. And I had a particular issue, because you could call me whatever name you want. But you're going to be ballsy enough to stand out where I can hear you from my window and run your fucking mouth to like 6 people. And then when I come outside just to go to the store, go do what I got to do, you don't have a fucking thing to say, tells me you're a fucking bitch and a pussy. You run that big fucking dick licker every other fucking day about other people. Okay. And what's funny is a guy on my floor came to me yesterday. He goes, hey, you know, this is before all it happened. He goes, I know he's out there and I know you saw me, Jeff. I don't want no issue with you. I said, I got no issue with you. I said, but I got one question for you. I said, you and me are friends, right? He's like, yeah. I says, so what made him comfortable telling you that? He goes, what you mean? I said, why are you standing there listening to that? He's always saying that because he thinks you agree. Oh, no, I was just standing there. I wasn't saying shit. I said, you standing there listening, being seen? Because I got people from down the block calling me, saying, oh, he's out here running his fucking mouth, blah, blah. So when they see you, they're going to put you in that, they're going to put you with that group, which means you're going to get fucked up too. Not by me, but by other people who think you're joining in. Oh, I don't want no problem. I don't want no problem. Everybody acts that way in my building to me. I don't want no problem. I don't want no problem. Because I made it known from day one with a couple of different people when they started getting wise with me what I would do. And I've slapped more than one person that lives in my fucking building. I can tell you that for a certifiable fact. For a certifiable fact. I've dumped more than one person on their fucking head outside of my building. And it's only because you're not going to disrespect me. So like I said, I could have handled that a different way yesterday. But thankfully, you know, I had a cooler head about it and just said, listen, if you got something to say it right now. Oh, no. I'm just mad about... Okay, so you a bitch. You run that mouth when you across the street with two other motherfuckers. You think I can't hear you. But now you got nothing to say when I'm standing here. You know? And I just told him, you got a beef, come see me. And I said, if we can't handle it this way like grown men, we'll go 6 blocks over. I'll beat the dog shit out of you, and that'll be the end. Oh, I don't want no problem. I don't want no problem. Then shut your fucking mouth. Then shut your mouth, because what people don't understand, and I know it's a ghetto mentality or just a thug mentality. When you disrespect who I am in front of other people and I don't act, yes, and I know most of you are going, you don't have to. Who gives a fuck what anybody thinks? You don't understand where I live. You don't understand how I grew up. That is everything. If I don't act, it's like the drug dealer on a corner who allows people to get crack on credit nonstop, and they get $1,000 deep, and then they beat the shit out of them once, and then they keep selling to them. What the fuck are you thinking? Motherfucker get $10 in crack money owed to me. I'm cracking his fucking head open if I don't get that money. That's why there's a difference between real pharmaceutical salesmen from the street corner and punks. That's the difference. So at the end of the day, you have to learn to play the fiddle. You have to learn to play the fiddle. All right, that's it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Rizzutos or something. Stay